And the mantra that I use to keep myself sane is, and I teach this, is to make sure that every day I do something to move my business forward.
Building your business one night at a time.
We're talking a lot about time. I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about this with a couple guests who I brought in who I know very well, who seemingly don't have a lot of time either, yet are somehow able to make it work. So I'm very happy to welcome our first guest. His name is Mark Mason from Late Night IM. Let's bring him on. What's up, Mark? Have a seat.
Thank you very much.
So Mark has the honor of being the very first guest that I ever had on the Smart Passive Income.
Best episode ever.
Episode 2, if you want to hear Mark. And what is unique about Mark is you have a job that you love, yet you are still able to make online business work. That's why it's called Late Night IM. And it's not just like this is a big-time job and you love it and you're not planning on leaving right away. So like, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you're able to balance that?
Yeah, so I work for a $15 billion electronics company in Dallas, and I have a big-time day job. I've been there for almost 30 years, and I love that job. I've been able to travel the world. I have amazing benefits. It's incredibly lucrative. It's a great job, and sometimes I pinch myself because I'm able to have that job, but I have other interests, and around 2007, actually right before we met, I really started to get interested in how money moves around the internet, and I love to help people, and I started figuring out how to build internet businesses, and for me it was on the side. And that's a very common question that people have. How can I'm trapped in this situation, or I'm in this spot, and how can I build a business on the side? And so late night internet marketing became this thing where I helped people start and build internet businesses late at night after the kids are asleep and the wife has gone to bed, or in my case is watching Stranger Things or whatever. Yeah, I'm working on my internet business.
Cool, awesome, and we're excited to dive into that. I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure you do as well. All right, so Mark, I want to start with you. Does late night IM mean no sleep IM?
It did back when you weren't sleeping either. In the very beginning, I chose to do that, and I think like you, I've learned that it's important to get the right amount of sleep, and I'm actually considerably more efficient. But no, it doesn't mean that. Really what it means is about making choices, and it's just like your rule number 1. You have to decide what's important. First of all, you have to know why you're doing what you're doing and what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and then you have to decide what the relative importance of that is compared to the other things that you can choose from, like watching Stranger Things.
Mark, you're also a family man. I love you for that too, and you have a number of kids, an amazing baseball player. How do you balance time with the kids taking you away from your business versus time in your business taking you away from your kids? How are you mentally able to be okay with that? I mean, honestly.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. So I think the most important mental construct for me is that just because my family is first in all things, they're first. There's no question about it. I think if Paula were here, she would tell you they're first. But that doesn't mean they're always first at every moment, right? So we have there's no question that they're first, but there are times when the business needs attention, and I'm working on that, and that's what's scheduled, and I work as best I can to fit that in places where it doesn't impact them at all. But sometimes, like this weekend, we have my 13U competitive baseball team. They had tryouts this weekend. I wasn't there. Is that baseball team first? Absolutely, it's first. But Pat Flynn's pretty high on my list too. And so this weekend, I'm with Pat Flynn, which, can you play baseball?
I've played.
Yeah, okay, we should play.
I remember going to baseball camp and the coaches were like, who are your favorite players? And everybody mentioned these sluggers. And I was like, Nolan Ryan, the only pitcher in the group. And they were like, you're in the wrong camp, dude. And then Mark, for you, when are you working on your business? Tell us your day. You're at work, you come home, obviously family's there. I'm just imagining, like, where is the time to build things? Yeah, so early in the morning. So my day starts early, and usually I'm up by 5. Okay.
And unless something unusual has gone on. And usually I'm working from, in that sort of 9 to midnight window, but not always to midnight and not always up at 5. I usually am getting at least, 6 hours of sleep. Sometimes I am, might be able to squeeze something in at lunch. Like I have some local physical mastermind groups that happen in Dallas and things like that. So I work the time in during the week as I can, and then sometime during the weekends as well. And particularly on the weekend nights, my kids are getting old enough where they're getting busy in the evenings on the weekends, and so I might get a 5 or 6 hour block where I can get something done early on a Saturday morning, and that I can just incrementally build over the last 10 years, just day after day. And the mantra that I use to keep myself sane is, and I teach this, is to make sure that every day I do something to move my business forward. It doesn't have to be a 17-hour commitment in that day, but just something so that tomorrow when I get up, I can recognize, yep, yesterday I accomplished something.
How do you have the energy for all that? Like, I'm just like thinking about living that kind of day and then having to devote creative energy into a business on top of that. Like, what is energizing you to do that?
I told Dana backstage, I only do things I love to do. It's why I'm here with you right now. It's why I have late night internet marketing. It's why I do the podcast, because those things energize me. Helping people energize me. Talking to your super fans here about their businesses and how they're doing what they're doing and trying to help a little if I can. That energizes me. I love that. And so that energy piece is actually the easy piece, right? So I think the hard piece is what was being discussed earlier is when you've got that 10-minute block, what is the right next thing to work on? That is absolutely critical. You've got to know exactly what you need to do next, and staying organized, that's the challenge for me personally.
Awesome. Mark, you have a very unique business strategy that involves Amazon, and that's been very useful for you and your students as well for allowing for businesses to be created in their busy lives. Tell us a little bit about that model and what that looks like and may interest some people.
Yeah, so in the last 10 years, I've done many different things online, and most recently, one of the things I've experimented with, mainly, to see what I could share with my audience is selling Amazon wholesale. And in fact, my 13-year-old has a related business that you know about where he's actually drop shipping stuff from China. He's got a website and sells stuff like that. So that's a very interesting model where you're taking advantage of buying things wholesale, the Amazon model, and selling them on Amazon. Most people don't realize that most of the things for sale on Amazon are actually not bought and sold by Amazon. They're bought and sold by third parties. And so that's an opportunity to do a kind of internet business. Drop shipping's another opportunity. And so I typically experiment things because my avatar comes to me on my podcast and asks the question, hey, how can I build an internet business? And there are many choices, as you know. I have a particular idea about what the best thing is for people to start with usually, but I also like to dabble in these other things so I can understand the marketplace.
Cool. And you talk about all this on Late Night IM, and people can get familiar with that there?
That's right.
Fantastic.
Level.
And Mark, I know you have a podcast as well, also known as Late Night Internet Marketing, and it's been very on and then off, and then on and then off, and like this pattern. Can you talk a little bit about why that happens and why that's okay, and then how you come back to it?
Yeah, and I'm not sure it's okay. I think I've been podcasting on and off since 2009, and I think if I lived in a perfect world, that I would have never missed an episode since 2009, and I'd be on episode 1000 or whatever that works out to be. Truth of the matter is, like everything, my ability to execute on that has ebbed and flowed, and there's been stuff that's been a higher priority. And rather than beating myself up for that, right, which is my tendency, I think the right approach is to make sure that you know why you're doing things and work on the most important things. And so there have been times when I put the podcast on hold, and I own those decisions, and that it's not ideal because it's not a Facebook world out there. And what I mean by that is you see all the happy, great things that everyone is doing on Facebook. You don't see all the struggles and the difficulties, and this is on hold, and this is a higher priority. You don't see that when you're looking at other entrepreneurs. It's important that each and every one of you realize that that really happens. It happens to Pat. It happens to me. I'm sure it happens to you. I mean, things don't always go exactly as you plan, and I think that's just the reality of the way that I'm doing things.
Love it. I'd love to ask you to recommend a resource for the audience here about where they can go learn more from you in terms of time or some strategy that you have for just making things a little easier for us as we start these new things. Do you have a resource where people can go learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's a future resource. So actually already scheduled in my feed for 2 weeks from now is an episode on this topic. So not totally on coincidence, because I knew that we were going to be talking about this. So if you want a whole 30 minutes of this from my perspective as a guy with a day job, just go to latenightim.com and find the podcast or find it on iTunes. And in about 2 weeks, that'll drop into your feed. And that's the best place to find me is latenightim.com. And I try to answer every email. So if you send me an email, I will do my very best to answer it.
Let's give a big round of applause for Dana and Mark. We'll put them up on the screen there. Yeah, we'll send you off. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thanks, Dana. Appreciate you. All right.